Kalimera, kalispera, kalinichta. No matter where in this weird and wacky, wonderful world you might be, thanks for making the Highbury Squad part of your day. We've made it to the end of another week. We're doing something a bit different tonight. But of course, at the end of the show, we'll talk a little Liverpool and Arsenal too. But here we go. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad. Evening, everyone. Thank you for making us part of your day. And salute to the squaddies at ease. I did not forget this time. I lose my manners when Super Kev isn't here, Michael. But here we go. It's episode 3 of the Goalkeeper Show. You guys have been asking for it to come back, so here it is. And joining me once again is Michael Price from You Are My Arsenal. Michael, welcome back to Squad Central.
Hey, Sophie. I'm happy to be back.
Excellent. Awesomeness. So next season, by the way, the Goalkeeper Show will be out and available once a month. And Michael will be involved in that. And we'll tell you all about that at the end of this season, hopefully once we've won the Premier League title and what you can expect from Highbury Squad next season.
Is that after we recover from celebrating the fact that we've won? I mean, that's gonna be if we win the title. Never mind. I don't want to get there yet. I don't want to get there. I can't get there yet.
I know. I can't either. I'm still in the middle of the journey, Michael. So, you know, right. So here we go. By the way, kids, don't forget, keep nominating your favorites because come the end of the season, we're going to be giving away a few of our Highbury Squad coins, the Highbury Squad at gmail.com, the Highbury Squad at gmail.com. And as always, thank you to our good friends over at Zenith Coins. Oh my God, I saw something today, Michael. Let me tell you something that is coming from them that they're working on with the club. And of course, Highbury Squad will be well involved in that. You guys are going to lose your minds. It is probably one of the best things I've seen them do so far. And that is all I'm going to say. Right. All the usual suspects are in the house. Let's rock and roll. There's so much focus, kids. And by the way, you know, I don't want to upset them. So let's say hi to everyone. Hi, Henok Z. Kalimera Kalispera. How are you? Matty K's in the house. Demsek's in the house. We got Ray in the house. Trev's here. PW is here. Kalimera Tikanis Galanai Selfizola Galan. To those celebrating, happy Easter to all of you as well. Right. Michael, so much emphasis is always put on the outfield players. The last time you and I spoke, we had a very interesting conversation about the differences between Ramsdale and Turner. We're going to talk about their evolution a little bit more this season, and in particular, focusing on Ramsdale, what he's going to mean to us in the next 9 games. The focus is always on right now, is Trossard going to start? Is Martinelli going to start? You know, Gabriel Jesus. We are in this situation where we have choice and an abundance of choice. And I'll get your thoughts on that later. But I think sometimes in the midst of these moments, it gets lost how fundamentally important the goalkeeper is, and a goalkeeper that has the bravado and the confidence to be a leader in the team as well.
Yeah, you know, Sophie, and we've been spending, you know, I think in our first show, we talked really technical. We talked positioning. We talked, you know, how players, Matt, and then in the second episode, we really started to talk more about little variances between the two. And I think we're going to kind of expand on that today. But like, I think today really focuses on the intangibles that I know coaches look for in a goalkeeper when they're assessing goalkeepers, you know, and the intangibles are, it goes beyond just the ability to make a save. It's about how they organize the back line, how they communicate when they play. And, you know, one of the players that I really like here in the US and the MLS is Andre Blake, because Andre Blake acts as a coach on the field. If you ever can get a video of him mic'd up on the field, he's not just focused in on the defensive side of things. He has a very important part to play in how the Union play going forward. And that's where I think Turner and Ramsdale have their differences. I think Ramsdale right now still portrays way much more confidence in the way that Arteta wants to play. But, the thing that I think we've seen with Turner, if you go back to the very first time we saw him play, there was knives out for that after letting Leno go, right? Leno, who now happens to be actually having – right now he's, somewhere in the middle of the pack towards the top.
He's having a good season.
He's having a good season at Fulham, right? But they're also not playing the way that we play, and I think that's kind of why we went the way we went. But that being said – Turner has developed, and you can see it different. You can see a difference in him. He's brought his natural shot stopping play in, and he's playing. He's able to play in the high line that Arteta wants to play, and he's definitely improved. But I still think that if we're going to cut to the chase right away, and we're going to talk about the importance of Ramsdale for this run-in, I still think it's all about Aaron Ramsdale, because I think Aaron Ramsdale gives Arteta the complete picture. I will say the one thing I've been most impressed with Matty Turner's development since he's been at Arsenal has been his distribution. It's not as pinpoint accurate in terms of that sidewinder that comes off of the side of the foot that Ramsdale can pinpoint to a wide player, but it's so much better than it is than I can remember him when he was at the Revs.
Yeah, he's and I've always stood by his distribution with his hands. I think that's where he has a lot of strength, definitely. So let's hone in on Rambo 2.0 just a little bit here, because I feel that, when he's had moments like this, he really set the expectations and the bar very, very high. And, and I think that he has delivered on those expectations. Super Kev has also mentioned a little bit this season, and we've had the discussions of maybe 3 or 4 games where he's overly played, perhaps overly gotten confident, overly exuberant, overly. He's an intense guy. I love his shithousery and his own dark arts, and how he, whether it's galvanizing the opposition or antagonizing the opposition, I love it, and I love him. Are you concerned about any of that as the stress and the pressure kicks in these last games, especially when we've got 2 London derbies, we've got Liverpool away, we've got Manchester City away, we've got a tough game against Newcastle away, and we've got a game against Brighton. Keeping heads is going to be so important.
Well, and I mean that's a question that can apply to the whole squad. But obviously, with Ramsdale, you need him to stay focused and committed to what we're doing and engaged the whole time. And sometimes, when I can actually, I know the time frame that you're talking about, when there was maybe some games where he kind of didn't look as stellar as he could. But, we're talking in the course of his playing 45 games when you throw in, additional games here and there, he's not going to be stellar for everyone, but I do think he's been solid. I mean, he's currently right now probably the number 1 ranked goalkeeper in the league, maybe behind Nick Pope. He's behind Nick Pope by one clean sheet in the number of clean sheets. He's only allowed 27 goals.
Michael, what's really interesting about the Nick Pope comparison statistically, and this is why when sometimes folks say to me, I don't want to hear your stats, it's what the eyeball test. The stats might say that. The eyeball test on Nick Pope in the last 2 of Newcastle's last 5 games has made some fundamental errors.
Yeah. Look, data is confirmatory. Is that the right word? I don't know. But data gives you confirmation of trends that you're seeing in the game. The eye test and the data combined gives you the full picture of a player that you're analyzing. Now, there are guys that are so much better with data than I am. I really take a look. As a coach myself, I do tend to focus more on what I'm seeing from the technique of a player. And yeah, I think Nick Pope, some of the weaknesses in Nick Pope's game have been coming out. He's been fortunate that he's had good structure in front of him. I think Eddie Howe has really put that into Newcastle, and much to. I mean, you could also argue that Aaron Ramsdale is playing well because he's got good structure in front of him. And let's go back 5 years for Arsenal. And this is where the importance of Ramsdale comes in. Look, we've had some bad defenders, we've had some bad goalkeepers. And I think the two combined just led to players being left out on islands and getting into 1v1s, goalkeepers who didn't have sound positioning or how to attack the ball in the air. Ramsdale, one of the things I like about Ramsdale above and beyond any goalkeeper we've had in a very long time is his ability to come out and attack the ball, especially on corners and clean and set pieces, where we've actually let him down on those instances where we've given up goals in leaving guys open for free headers and stuff like that. Even the best keepers, can't keep everything out. But you go back to how we were Sophie, you and I probably used to talk about how mind-wrenching awful our defense used to be. And I lay that I think I've said this before. I look at our defensive setup as a 5, maybe a 6-man unit. And the 6-man unit starts at that defensive midfielder. So the POTY role, right? The back four, the traditional back four, and the goalkeeper. I always, and how I coach and approach when I work with my defensive units on the teams that I've coached, I work with the back line and the goalkeeper. Because the goalkeeper sees everything. The goalkeeper has to have awareness of everything that's going on, from the attack to the defensive side. Yes, I know a lot of coaches will say to their center backs, you have to be the ones communicating. I talk to my back five to make sure that they're all working together. They all understand each other's tendencies, how they like to play. How does the goalkeeper like to have the center back shield so that he can win the ball? That kind of stuff. And I think that's where and granted, we have some stellar defenders in the squad that have made Ramsdale's job perhaps easier, but you have to give him the credit to organizing that, seeing the threat, identifying the threat, and honestly being, to me, the goalkeeper's the catalyst for that. So I have all the praise in the world. And I think, you talk about the shithousery and all the stuff, the dark arts that he does, but let's be honest with him. He's vocal. He's loud. He doesn't let his defenders off the hook when they make mistakes. You've seen multiple moments where he has chastised a defender for missing a man, making a bad decision, right? He doesn't let them off the hook. And I can go back to Czech. I can go back to Szczesny and some of our other flops in goalkeeper. And they weren't as demonstrative when their defenders made mistakes as Ramsdale is. And I think that helps us. That helps us get to 12 clean sheets.
And
right?
I think that helps us because when you have him doing that, whether it's in the 6-yard, 8-yard box, or even when he comes out, where he's playing sweeper, or it's Gabriel just in front of him, and then that spine, then you got Xhaka who's vocal in the middle, then you keep moving forward, and you've got someone like Jesus who's vocal with just how he moves.
Mm-hmm.
There's this symphonic kind of unity when you go from the back to the front. And the leadership skills and qualities of this team are so different. Odegaard is a silent leader, Thomas Partey the same. Then you've got the loud ones like Xhaka, like Zinchenko, like Ramsdale, who balance those out. So,
we talked about this, and this is a little bit more expansive than just the goalkeeper. But the biggest difference over the last year and a half has been the cohesiveness of the squad, the fact that each part supports the other, from the goalkeeper supporting the back line supporting the midfield supporting the front play, right? Arteta and Edu have to be given a lot of credit for how they've assembled this squad. And, the big difference maker for Liverpool when they won the title was the inclusion of Virgil van Dijk and Alisson, right?
Yeah.
I think for us, the thing that if we win the title, you have to look at the solidity of the back four and Ramsdale, and the fact that it's been a primary consistent through more than 80% of the games. That's not a data I have off the hand, but it's consistency across. They understand each other. They communicate well. One of the things I think that the back line knows is they know if they get caught, that Ramsdale is good enough and solid enough to perhaps win those 1v1s with the attacker when they come in.
Okay, so let's have this conversation, because you lead in beautifully to my question in response to kind of what you're saying about consistency, how much they've played together. Here we are again at the end of the season, like last season, where we lost Thomas Partey last year, Tomiyasu and Tierney. They were fundamental to our success and how we were playing last year. So here we go into one of the most important games of our lives, trying to change a narrative at Anfield against Liverpool, who have been over the last 5 or 6 years incredible. So Rob Holding steps in, Michael, and whether it's you coaching, at uni level, or you're coaching your women's team right now, or when you're doing your coaching badges, when you're talking to the Philly Union guys and all this stuff, disruption is positive in the tech world. In terms of how it moves us forward. But in football, disruption can be fatal. Now, we've dealt with the biggest disruption of all this season when we lost Gabriel Jesus, and Eddie came in and did a phenomenal job. He earned his crust this season for keeping that ticking over. How do you think Holding coming in, playing at this pivotal time of the season? Yes, he did a great job against Leeds, but playing against Liverpool, he's going to be playing against Chelsea potentially. We don't know if Saliba's going to be back anytime soon. Talk me through that part of it.
Well, it's equal parts coaching. And what I mean by that is making sure as a coach that the player understands how fundamental they are to and this is actually happening while Holding is not playing, right? Through the long time that he has to sit on the bench. The coaching staff have to really, I use the vernacular, pour into him, really get into him and let him know how important he is, so that when he does get the opportunity to step in like he is, he understands being switched on right away. He understands how to play. And then obviously, I do think if there's a weakness in Holding's game, it's obviously his speed. I've been really impressed with how he's played, right, in the style that Arteta wants him to play to, because I don't think that's his strength. I think he's the traditional English center back that England has grown to love, right? I think he plays a better physical game. He's probably better sitting a little bit deeper off than playing as a high line, right? But he's actually played quite well and quite consistent. And frankly, you don't hear his name called all that much, which is a good sign to me as a defender. Is it disruptive? It absolutely is, simply because he's not been a constant member of the cohesive. But while I talk about the consistency, let's also remember that they've all been training together. They've all been working together. Rob Holding is no stranger here. Plus, I'm sure he's connected. He's got a little bit of protection from having White on his right and Gabriel on his left that can maybe help cover some of the deficiencies in his play. I think where I'd be a little bit more worried is, you go back last year and we missed Tomiyasu, who last year was stellar on the right. We were missing Tierney on the left. We didn't have solidity across that back four. And that was just disruptive to us all across. I think for the large part, we're solid. We have White, who's been great. I mean, I would have been more worried. You remember Leeds, the run into Leeds, White was taken off the field pre-game.
Yeah.
And that made me a little bit worried, because I think White offers some protection to Holding that he may not have gotten if we had somebody had to have somebody else there.
Yeah.
So yeah, having Holding in the middle is disruptive in terms of the continuity across that back four. But I think, again, and this is where Ramsdale also has an important role to play. He understands how we want to play. He's got to orchestrate that back four to play the way Arteta wants him to play. He's got to see the threats, identify the threats so that he can, call in the center defenders, call in the wide players, the wide defenders, the fullbacks, so that they're covering. That's where Ramsdale plays an important role. It helps in this time of Saliba being out right now, to have Ramsdale being that coaching figure, if you will, to that back line.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And Super Kev said similarly, when Holding played in those games, especially, at the end of last season, or when he's played, against Leeds, he had pretty much everybody around him, right? And that makes a massive, massive difference. Let's go to some of the comments.
Can I just add one other thing?
Yeah.
The other part to that is, let's not underplay the importance of Partey, who, and this is one of the reasons I also think Jorginho was a good buy, that protection for the back line. That protection from that position is so important. I mean, great. Gabriel and Saliba have been great. They've been fantastic, utterly one of the best tandems in the league by far, but they also have the best cover. I think they have the best cover in front of them, and I think we have the two best players for that position right now.
Okay, awesome. So let's move on to talking a little bit about, in terms of Ramsdale, and we talked about Holding. Everyone seems a little bit more confident going in. There are a lot of Arsenal fans who are not confident going in. And I just wanted to bring up some of the comments and maybe a couple questions in the middle of our convo here. Demsek agrees that Matt Turner's good at throwing the ball. Ramos is becoming a very good keeper. Class soon, says Matty K. Ray says, remember last year, many of us thought our games in hand would mean points, so I don't presume. Brady's Banana says, if we were in Paul's half, all is good. If they're in our half, I squint and say we pray, Tammy. There's a lot of folks still exceptionally worried, and I don't blame. I am. It's Liverpool at Anfield. I don't care how bad you are. The PTSD kicks in majorly.
They're the second best team. They've been absolutely horrid on the road this season.
Horrid.
They've looked nothing like Liverpool. They're the second best. Now let's flip the coin on that. They're the second best team at home in the league right now. Or I think that was the last time I heard they were the second best team at home.
Yeah, if their away record was as good as their home record, they'd be challenging for the title right now.
Right.
Easy.
Right. They just fall apart at home.
Yeah.
Are they the same Liverpool that of the last few years? No. This is typical and I talked to, there's a good friend of mine, Andrew, who is a big Dortmund, and he covers Germany a lot. And he said this feels awfully familiar to the last year of Klopp's last year at Dortmund, where he just didn't have answers for what was going on. The team was kind of in a transition phase, but it just did not feel right. And it doesn't feel right for Liverpool, but they're still, it's still Anfield. It's still it's one of the many humps that we have to get over. Am I concerned? I'm always concerned when we go to Anfield, but I'm also buoyed by the fact that we went to Tottenham and won for the first time at Tottenham since 2016. I think, was it the first time that we've, and we won convincingly at Tottenham, right?
What was it, since 2011 or 12 we'd done the double over them, and it had been prior to Pochettino's prior to beating them at White Hart Lane. I think it was a long 10 or 11 years. It
had been a while, so we've done that. We have, and I know we lost 3-2 at United.
3-1 at Old Trafford. Yeah, I was there for that game.
I still thought we got. We're much better on the road this year than we ever have been. But again, you still have to respect who Liverpool are at home in front of that crowd. However, I personally believe, and this is one of the things that I think has been the greatest thing to see this year, I don't think Liverpool fans are going to get behind them if we can get on them early. And what do I mean by that? That place goes silent when they're not playing well, right?
It's a bit of a myth how loud it is down there sometimes.
Yeah, it
with
is.
Respect.
if you can look, this is where the maturity of this squad has to come in. I think that this is one of those things that is going to ultimately help them as they become an older, more seasoned squad. And I'm talking about us, of course. They have to go in here. They have to start this game. They have to start this game on the front foot, like everything depends on it. And they have to, this is a game where I think you absolutely have to score first. I think you have to take Anfield out of the picture as quick as possible.
Smack them in the mouth immediately. And I think we will. I think we're going to get 2 early goals. I do. Even though I don't know why. I think we'll draw there. It's, I'll take a draw.
I'll take a draw at Anfield too. What I won't take is the thing about it.
Can't take losing.
Allison is the reason. Allison. So I think we talked about this in the first show when we talked specifically about goalkeepers. When a goalkeeper is busy, things aren't right. When a goalkeeper is your player of the year repeatedly, like De Gea was for United, that's a problem. That tells me that the goalkeeper is far too busy. Allison has been their best player so far this year, and I really do think it's because he's been busy, and because I think specifically Arnold has been exposed defensively, right? I think teams have sussed out you play that space behind him, you force him to defend in 1v1s, and that's why I give us a lot of hope there. Allison's gonna be hard to score against, but if you isolate. I like the 2 battles we could present on that left wing. Gabriel versus Arnold versus Trossard versus Arnold. 1v1, I like that. And then you leave it to the shooter versus the goalkeeper at that point.
Yeah. It's interesting you say, because the goalkeeper, I love that comment about if he's too busy, it's not a good thing over a long period of time. I do think this season, Ramsdale has been better than some fans think. And I believe that because Saka's been so insane and Odegaard has been so ridiculously good, that you just feel like as long as the goalkeeper's doing his job, that's fine. But I like them to be measured equally. For example, if Jesus, that game against Manchester United at Old Trafford, where I was there, Michael, had we taken our chances early in that match, we win that game.
Easily.
If Ramsdale makes a mistake, he's going to get killed by everybody and on social media for his mistake.
I'm awful with this sometimes, but when the last few games, there have been a couple moments where these lower teams, we'll just say lower in terms of, I don't want to say lesser, because the league is a lot stronger this year than I think it's ever been. But at Bournemouth, I can think of even Leeds, where they were having a proper go at us, and Ramsdale was called on to make important saves that kept us in the game, right? Because look, our weak spot is if you can get behind Zinchenko, you can isolate Gabriel 1v1, or you can get it on the goalkeeper, right? And there have been a couple plays down that side particular that Ramsdale, and this is John Harrison, who does a lot of goalkeeper data on Twitter, pointed this out. One of the things that's really stellar about Ramsdale and how he plays is he doesn't commit to the 1v1 so early. When you watch, if you watch Ramsdale in 1v1s. The instinct is, and I see this a lot in youth soccer, is get that goalkeeper to commit right away coming off the line, right? Ramsdale has a tendency he reads the situation, he reads the striker so well, and sometimes he will stay on his line because he knows that the striker is anticipating him come out. Now, and he comes out, it often seems late. I think to him, It's when he really wants to commit to that ball, and and more times than not, he wins that battle. He's really good. So he's so good with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
And
that's really insightful.
and
Now I
that's
think about it, it's you don't really see him but busting. That's that trust though, isn't it? Again, is it the
mhm,
trust of the back line being able to make up the deficit,
mhm.
or is that just how the coaches want him to be and Arteta wants him to be? Less panic, allow the defense to
It's
make.
it's it's
What is
all
it?
I think it's all of that together. First of all, I think naturally he is not a goalkeeper who's spooked or panicked, right? I don't think he panics in situations. Um, uh, I don't think, and I think that he trusts the defenders in a 1v1 situation as much as possible,
Mm,
right? And I think he comes off I think he comes off the line way more way less than I think you'd see most goalkeepers come off the line.
yeah,
Um, but I think to me, it always feels like for him, that's the right time. It never feels like Chesney would come off the line, and I was like, oh gosh, here he goes. He's left. Now part of that was because the defense in front of him
yeah, no
was so,
trust.
except for the 1 year that Koscielny and Mertesacker were the best tandem in the league, and Chesney shared the Golden Glove with Czech. That was the only time I ever felt that we've looked solid defensively. Other than that, it's only been under Ramsdale and the building of the back line that we have that I honestly, me personally, the less I hear a defender's name, the less I hear a goalkeeper's name, the more I'm like, okay, we're playing well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. No, for sure. There's definitely that. What was that comment that I just took off, but about Ramsdale making saves 50 on 50-50 chances. Here's the other thing. I think it was Yami who put that up there. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yomi, yeah. Um, what I like about him too is, for example, the save at Tottenham with his feet.
Mm-hmm.
When you think the opposition has the moment, what I love about him, and there aren't that many. That's why when people say, "Oh, we could do better than Ramsdale," please, you've seen how hard it is to find a left-footed centre back, right? It's not easy. When you see finding a good goalkeeper is not easy.
It is not. They don't grow off of trees. I mean, why do you think Gigi Buffon played for so long? Because he was so good for so long that nobody could replace him in that squad. Because there wasn't anybody that really could replace him in that squad. For that squad, they couldn't find somebody to replace him. And I'll be honest with you, Chesney has not been as good at Juventus as an aging Buffon was, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ramsdale. I'll say this right now: Ramsdale's a better goalkeeper than Ederson, especially in those 1v1 situations, right? If you're telling me, so Sophie, I don't know if you remember this from the early days of MLS. Do you remember how overtime was played?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The one-on-ones.
The one-on-ones with the
Yeah,
goalkeepers,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course.
right? Give me that scenario.
With Rambo.
Rambo and Ederson matched up, and I'm taking Rambo every time, because I think the point that is it Yami that made that,
Mm-hmm.
he gives you that chance to win the 50-50. There are other goalkeepers that if it's a breakaway, a 1v1 with the attacker, where you're just like, it's a goal. You've already put your head down. You know it's going into the back of the net. Ramsdale is a goalkeeper who gives you a chance to win that 50-50.
Yeah. And the reason why I wanted to kind of get into these little threads with you on him is because the teams we're facing in these last 9 games, right, can cause you those one-on-one problems, can
Right.
cause you those breakaway problems.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like with him, even if our defense gets beaten in some way, we've got someone between the sticks who's going to give you a chance.
Yep.
And I think he's proven that. Let me get some of these comments up for you, Michael.
Yep.
And let's see. From Guna Works, a very important intangible that a goalkeeper offers is confidence. Confidence that they can stop shots, which Turner has, and confidence that they can play the ball, which Turner is still developing. There's no doubt that I don't think, barring a horrific situation, we're clearly not going to see Matt Turner for the rest of the season. And to be fair to Matt, and I love Matty, we don't want to see him. And we've seen him really grow in the confidence. I think this save against Wales in the World Cup was massive. Saves against players like Gareth Bale, in the World Cup. And you could argue he hasn't started for Arsenal, Michael, but he's faced some of the world's best players because he's the US men's national team starter. So God forbid if something happened, I think we have a more confident Matty coming into this. Matty. We have a confident Turner coming into the situation.
Yeah, look, I think Matt Turner's trajectory, and we talked about it at the beginning of the show, he is a much better keeper than he was when he got here. There's much more confidence to his play, so much so that I think at the time that he stopped playing at the Europa League, what is it, 3 clean sheets in the Europa League, right? And that comes from confidence. He's much better. I really do like the comment that somebody made real early. He is so good at getting the ball out of his hands, and for a team that wants to get into transition quick, that's so important. He's only going to get better, but you're right. You don't want to see him again because that means we've had an injury to Aaron Ramsdale. Ramsdale is a better keeper.
100%. There's no doubt about that.
But what you want from your number 2 is the ability for there not to be a significant drop off, right? We had it like we went from Leno to Ramsdale. So Ramsdale came in, he was the number 2, right? And Leno gets shaky. Ramsdale comes in and never relinquishes the spot, right? And then when Ramsdale came in for a couple games. Leno comes in for a couple games as the number 2, and he was solid. I can't remember the game where he was really standing. To use a hockey vernacular, he stood on his head.
Well, he was really good in our FA Cup winning year as well, wasn't he? It was Aubameyang banging in the goals and Leno saving us at the back.
People forget this, and there was a lot of praise for Martinez because Martinez played well for the remainder 9 games of the season, including the FA Cup that year. Leno was on course to be our player of the year, and because he was stellar in every aspect of his game.
For all the reasons you said you didn't want a goalkeeper to be goalkeeper of the year, that's why he was on that trajectory, because he saved us so many times that season.
Right, he absolutely did. And then he got the injury, and then I don't think we would have lost the FA Cup with him in goal versus Martinez.
Yeah. Okay, a few more of your comments here. Thanks for everyone who's joining. Hit the like button, of course. I think we're the only goalkeeper show out there. And like I said, we're going to be bringing you the Goalkeeper Show once a month next season with Michael. It's a show that I'd love to explore a little bit more with some experts as well. So I think you guys will enjoy it as it grows and as it goes. Gunnar Works, just the follow-up to his comment, Michael. Ramsdale offers the team confidence that he can stop shots, dominate his box, handle the pressure with the ball at his feet, to riff off what he was saying about Matt Turner. R says, my worry with Ramsdale in comparison to the best in Alisson is that it feels he has weak hands. Sometimes he just seems to push his hands at shots as opposed to pushing the ball away. What do you think about that?
I mean, there are some punches that I've been. I don't know about that because you showed the picture of that the Leicester save from last season, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was last season, right? It just seems like ages.
It was in his first season,
yeah,
and it was spectacular.
You don't make that save with weak hands. Right. That right now, if your wrists are weak, you don't have strong hands, you don't get that ball over the net. Okay.
And the same with the Tottenham save in the second half of that game.
Right. Yeah. You don't. Is he? And look, he's 24. Reflexes, intuition, they mature a little bit older. That's why you always hear goalkeepers are better when they're older. A goalkeeper enters their prime when they're 28 to 31. Okay. The likes of Buffon, even our own Seaman, they were anomalies, right? The fact that they played off into their later years, right? 28 to 31 goalkeepers. And it's not so much the technique that's developing. It's the reflexiveness. It's the intuition. It's the cognitive stuff that comes into play that you get from maturity, right? That necessarily you don't have when you are in your early 20s. By this, you know, he's physically where he's going to be right now. But in terms of, he's only, the thing about it, if we're talking about Ramsdale as being right now, he's either we're depending on the data you look at, depending on the power rankings you look at, he's either the first or the third best goalkeeper in the league. 1 to 3, take your pick. And he's only 24, right? And when his intuition can, when that cognitive ability really settles in for him as an older player, right? He's going to be better. I mean, what you don't realize is he's actually probably going to get better.
Yeah.
He's really going to get better.
Why, Michael, why can't our goalkeepers save penalties? Is this the next frontier for Arsenal Football Club? We've overcome a few in the last 3 seasons. Is this the next frontier?
Are we talking specifically about the penalty shootout? I mean, if we want to go there, let's be honest. He had 4 of those, right?
He was close.
He 4 of those he was there for. I have this argument with my goalkeepers all the time because I'm like, just guess which way to go. We don't guess. We try to read the shooter, right? Right. It's depending on the coach. Honestly, depending on the coach you talk to, penalty saving can be guesswork. It can be trying to read the foot of the shooter. I don't know where I fall into. I'm just like, I never can watch penalties with my goalkeepers. I always have to turn my back. But
what I don't like is when a goalkeeper does save it, they say the player missed it. It's just nonsense.
No,
but I think it's an area we have to improve in.
What the things you want to look out for is how do they get down? There are moments where you can literally say that the striker, the shooter had an issue. Like if a goalkeeper, if you see a shot that's saved mid-range on a goalkeeper on a PK, right, any in that mid-range, it's most likely that the shooter shot to you have to give the goalkeeper credit for going in the right direction of the shot, but also because the shooter probably shot too far. When you see a good hand save, when you see a goalkeeper get down and their hand gets on that ball, that's all them. That's all their technique and their training. That's them understanding how the shooter is going to shoot. Everything comes into play there. I do think Ramsdale is going to get there. Mm-hmm. I thought he did all right with the shots that he faced in that penalty shootout. I just think the shooters did better.
How much work does a goalkeeper do in watching pens? Because we hear sometimes that some don't. They just like to be spontaneous, but mostly don't. They have to study the opponent, don't they, Michael?
So, look, I don't know what Inaki Kana is going over with them, right? You have seen, we've all seen these pictures of their water bottles when you're when you're in an elimination, like Champions League or something like that. You've seen a goalkeeper's water bottle and they have the list of the players and what foot that they shoot off of. So they're obviously scouting that. They obviously, on some level, the goalkeeping coach, the goalkeeping staff is probably talking through as they get into. So if you don't know how a week goes, they come out of the game, the day after the game, the day they could have off, but the next day they're in, it's a low load game. By the middle of the week, to the point where they're halfway to the game, they get into a full load situation, and then they start to transition about how to plan for the opponent, right? When you get into that time frame, when you're planning for the opponent, I have to think that they are going over, if we get into, especially in the situations where PKs could dictate the game, right? I'm not so sure. I don't know, and other people will probably have better insight into how much they spend going into penalty shooters in the course of a league game. But in a knockout scenario, I would suspect that studying PKs is a big part of that.
And, Champions League, hopefully we'll get to the knockout stages. Hopefully we'll, progress further in the domestic cups next season. And this becomes an area where we definitely see a little bit more of an improvement.
I'll be honest with you right now. If we were in the Champions League this year, I could have seen us progressing to the knockout stages. And look, my bias is going to show here. We're one of the best playing teams in Europe right now. Completely.
I think the same, which is why I was so annoyed that we got knocked out of the Europa League. I thought it was just our worst moment of the season, and there haven't been many. And I was really peeved about that as a fan. I wasn't angry at Arteta. I wasn't angry at the players. Just as a fan, I was angry at fellow fans who saw that as a good thing. It's never a good thing. I'm sorry. Anyway, I've talked about that.
I would have rather, if you, and again, we're going to sit here at the end of the season and we'll reassess all that. You know, if we miss the title, you know, then we'll look at all the missed opportunities of the season. If we win the title, I don't think anybody's ever going to remember that penalty shootout, right?
No, exactly.
You know, but yeah, look, I think PKs are just such a 50-50 situation. I know John Harrison, like I mentioned on Twitter, he's got some really good data on how on saving PKs and stuff like that. I do recommend people search if you're really interested in this position. I love this position, and you know, I
think we'll do that. This is the things that I'm excited about. Some of the stuff you've said, and listen, guys, please share this, because some of it may have gone over your head because you're all drinking red wine on Good Friday, okay? Which I absolutely love the sub chat happening in the chat, you knuckleheads, okay? But some of the things you're talking about in terms of the prep, just the nuances, that's what we'll get stuck into a little bit more next season with coaches and stuff. It's really cool. It's a position that I just think needs a little bit more conversation, you know.
So Sophie, we've talked about this. I'm particular to this. Not only am I a coach, but I'm the parent of a goalkeeper, right? I'm a parent of a collegiate goalkeeper in the US. And I don't know how many have played that position, but it is the most, for me as a parent of a goalkeeper, as a coach of a goalkeeper, it's nerve-wracking to watch a goalkeeper in action, right? Mm-hmm. I almost can never look at high tense situations, right? Because it just gnaws at me. But most fans honestly break down the goalkeeping position to this one simple fact: did they stop the ball? And the game has just evolved beyond that. And the goal, again, I'll go back to Andre Blake. Here in the U.S., Andre Blake, Aaron Ramsdale, Ederson, they're all an 11th field player.
Manuel Neuer was like that, like for
Manuel Neuer's been one of probably the best consistent goalkeeper
for the last 10 years.
10 years. Yeah.
Let's get these in before we have to duck out real quick, because there's a ton of comments coming in for you. And I have to get your take on Liverpool real quick too.
Right, okay.
And by the way, guys, if you missed our match preview for Liverpool, you can catch it in the video section in our playlist with the Anfield Wrap, John Gibbons and Harriet Pryor. A great show and really totally different, I think, in terms of what you thought you might hear from Liverpool fans talking about the Arsenal. Okay, why don't we just get stuck into that, because we're running out a bit of time here, and it might riff off into some of this other stuff you're saying. Okay, so Matty K, even though you're drinking too much red wine, a good stat here: anytime we've won the league, we've beaten Liverpool at their place. You spelt "there" wrong, and that's because you're drunk. 89, 91 and 2004. Steve Stone says Anfield is a different animal. I don't expect to see the same Liverpool that showed up against Chelsea. All this resting, I asked the Anfield Wrap guys, and other than Robertson and Salah, who they felt was very strange, they weren't surprised with some of the other benchings or restings, if you like. I know that Salah wasn't training yesterday, but I'm sure he'll appear somehow. Ben White helping out Holding will slow it down a little bit, like what you've said, and a lot of those comments are coming through. PW says Liverpool defense should be concerned about our attacks. BX Gunner says you want these matchups, it brings out that champion mentality. Ray says someone said that he knows would rather play an unfit Saliba than a fit Holding. I'm glad he's not our manager, as are we. MSEC says we're 5 points ahead. If we lose to Liverpool, then that becomes 2. Lose at City and we are behind. Okay, let's get stuck into this a little bit with you, Michael. What are you expecting at Liverpool? What does your heart say and what does your head say?
My heart tells me we're going to break the duck for the first time in a while. And I think it's because of that attack statement that somebody made earlier. I think our attack is so much better right now than theirs. That's not to say that their attack's not a threat. Their attack is definitely a threat. Anytime Mohamed Salah gets you isolated in a 1v1, that's a threat. But we have the ability to not only bring on the 3 players that we have, but we have supporting players that can come in and be a positive threat too. So my heart says it's going to be a 2-1 win at Anfield. My head says it's going to come out a draw because I just think it's Anfield. It's Liverpool at home, and I'm perfect. I'm the only result that's not a happy ending for me is a loss. Right, coming out of Anfield with a draw is a good result for any team. Doesn't matter what level you are. Anfield is just a very difficult place to play.
By the way, we're talking about different kind of happy endings here on Easter Friday. Brady's Banana says, if we don't have a home ref on Sunday, 3 points to the Arsenal and Arteta be cool. No arguing with Klopp. What do you think about?
I want them to go at it. I'm sorry. I need that energy. And let's be honest. If you ask any Liverpool fan, there is no such thing as a home ref. They don't like the refs just like we do. No, I'm all for it. Look, you have 2 very high energy, very ego driven coaches. And I mean that in all good way. Every coach has an ego, right? Mm-hmm. But these guys, they're like, I know my game, and they're intense, and they want their players to feed off of their intensity. And so I'm okay if they have the antics. I just want Arteta to come out on top of it.
I love it. Real quick, because I've got a few more quick fire answers here. Michael, what's your starting front 3?
I'm going to go with Martinelli, Gabriel, and Saka. That's the front 3.
And Demsex with the double hitter here. I love this one. Should a goalkeeper go up for a last gasp corner? Let's just say
no.
Well, if it's the last game of the season and we need to win, and it's the last corner, he's going up, is he not?
You're probably right, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not a fan of it, and we saw why in that game against Aston Villa.
Yeah, that was glorious.
I loved every minute of it.
Quick, one from Dale here, because I wanted to put it in. How are you determine Ramsdale's the 3rd best goalie? I think he's been great, especially post-World Cup, but I thought statistically Ramsdale was the middle of the pack. I think he means...
I want to be honest with you. I'm saying you can rank him anywhere. Depending on the data set you're using, you could probably use, and I'm talking power rankings and stuff like that, FBref and stuff like that. You can go to 1 to 3 with him. But let's put it this way. He's got the 3rd. He's tied for 2nd in clean sheets. He's 3rd. There's 2 players tied for 2nd in the number of goals allowed, right? To me, that clearly puts him in that top 3 stratosphere. Plus, when you throw in the intangibles that with him, like I mentioned that 1v1 difference, right? Mm-hmm. That he's better than Ederson, easily better than Ederson, right? And Ederson's considered one of the top goalkeepers in the league. He's a top 3. If you want to be more fair, let's say top 5 goalkeeper in the league. But I'd honestly have him top 3 interchangeable across all 3 positions, depending on who you're talking to.
Okay. Steve says, I was shocked the first time I went to Anfield. It was nowhere near as loud as what the TV lead me to believe. We're watching the Masters now, and those little tweeting birds and stuff, sound effects.
Right.
Let's see.
The Emirates has been louder this season than Anfield.
Ethelston, our token Spurs fan, who's very pleasant and nice. All the other Spurs fans have disappeared. Please, someone send out an SOS for Danny D. And what happened to Zidane, the Leicester fan? Oh, it's just glorious. If Arsenal hit long balls down the left flank, they might end up tearing up Liverpool. Right side has been their weakness since Trent became established.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier when we were, I really, a couple things I want to look for to see success in this game. First of all, are we isolating our left wing against Trent Alexander-Arnold, right? Because if you can do that and get him into 1v1 situations, you're at least getting back. You're gonna force them deep into their zone, and they're the defensive third, and you're gonna wind up with shots on goal, which is what you want. And so I'm looking for that. And what I'm looking for, I'm going to look for long ball directional switches of play. From the midfield, from like Partey, from Xhaka, from Odegaard, from White across field, looking for that, looking to isolate Gabriel 1v1.
I love this comment from our chief like officer, Tammy. I've noticed in the gym lately more Arsenal shirts. Number one, I'm impressed you're going to the gym, Tammy. Well done to you. Excellent stuff. And yeah, more Arsenal shirts. We're loving it. See a lot of them everywhere.
Can I be honest with you? I have a theory on that. I have a theory that Arsenal fans up until the last season and a half have been hiding their shirts for a while and are finally ready to break. We're finally ready to break them out.
True enough. True enough. All right, Colin, I think we'll end this one with you. Players need to forget it's Anfield. Just do their jobs like they have since August.
That's an important comment. That's it right there.
Very.
Because the difference, look, I really firmly believe that yes, we had important players missing in our run-in to last season, right, to close out for the Champions League. I really do think that was a maturity lesson for the team. And I think that they've learned that lesson, and I'm really hopeful that they really they stick to the fact that this is just another game. This it's Anfield, but it's just another game, just like it was at Tottenham, which is a derby. It's just another game. You play another game. Play the game that you've been playing to. Don't fall away from the way you've been focused this season, and I think we'll be fine.
I think so too. Pani Masaridis right here. Yasu Pani, Elpizo Galanaise. Quietly. By the way, we are doing our Easter next week. The Greeks have our Easter next week. Quietly confident we're going to disrupt things this time at Anfield, going for a 2-1 win. I absolutely love that. Okay. Great show, says our chief like officer. Thank you, Michael. Isn't he great? I love it. Gives you such great insights that we don't have on the show from the goalkeeping side, and we're going to be doing a lot more of this. Let's see. What's your prediction? I know you said a draw, a 2-2 or 1-1. Are you going for goals?
No, it's not going to be goals. I think at home, I think we're good. We're so good defensively on the road now. I saw somebody put the comment up. We actually have more clean sheets on the road this season than we do at home. I think it's because at home we just know we can score so many goals, right? But I'm going. If it's a draw, it's going to be a 2-2. If it's a win, it's a 2-1.
Okay. All right. You heard it here. You heard it first. We kids are going to be back after that game for our post-match show. We're hoping that we're all going to be happy and waxing lyrical about our Gunners. By the way, don't forget to get your email in and your nominations, because we're going to start wrapping up giving away the Highbury Squad coin for this season. But if you want to be Suraj, look at this, who received his coins this week and sent us a picture looking absolutely fantastic, his Arsenal and Highbury Squad coin. And as I said, some really fantastic stuff coming out. Michael getting a lot of love in the house, having to deal with all you Easter Friday drinkers. I think he smashed it. And
that's why they liked it. They're all drunk this week. No, but hey,
they're the ones who've been asking for you to come back. So,
well, I'm so appreciative. I always love joining this conversation, and it really is a position that I think deserves more attention.
Definitely. All right. Go follow Michael at You Are My Arsenal, and you'll be seeing a lot more of him next season. Maybe even, depending on how the season ends, we'll squeeze something in at the end of this season just to wrap up our goalkeeper conversation as we go into the summer transfer window. And we'll talk a little bit more about whether or not Matt Turner will stay. And I'll share some more info from when I spoke to him a couple of weeks on that too. In the meantime, take care. Happy Easter to those who celebrate. Don't drive if you are drinking, please. And be sure to be safe. At ease, squaddies, at ease. Take care. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.